This is the part of Seoul I call home. I thought I knew it, but hidden between the new apartment towers are 1930s hanok, a Queen's legend, Buddhist temples, and historic buildings moved here piece by piece. Here, old Seoul reappears in unexpected places, even as much of it is disappearing.
It is almost 36 degrees, humidity through the roof, and that means it's time for another neighborhood. We're going to explore Bomun-dong and Samseong-dong. We're starting actually and technically in Seongbuk-gu. Behind me is where the Dongmyeon flea market is, and from there you can walk up a mountain. That mountain has a story, which I will show you in a minute. Let's do this.
Before entering Bomun-dong, we need to begin just across the boundary in Seongbuk-gu. Because one story connects all three neighborhoods, and it's because of what happened on this small mountain here.
I want to show you something first. Look at this. This is a pavilion that looks into the eastern direction, and over there is Dongmyeon flea market. According to a legend, a queen consort, after her husband was dethroned and exiled to the east of the country, Yongwo, she climbed this mountain every day and looked into the east and pray for her husband's soul. Let's begin this journey. I'm excited to explore my own neighborhood. Every year the locals come and gather together here around another pavilion, and on this little shrine they hold ceremonies to honor the spirit of the queen. No, the spirit of the queen lives on top of this mountain. Yeah, this is the name of the peak, Mang Bong. And if you climb up a little bit more, the story of the queen consort and the king is explained here in a cartoonish way. Yeah, this is one of the better views you can get, because you look over Changu-dong, and because Changu-dong is rather undeveloped, nothing obstructs the view. You can see how the city unfolds in front of you all the way until Namsan. Something else you can see is how there used to be a big quarry here, built by the Japanese. You see the remains here, you see these unnatural cliffs on the other side as well, and you can kind of imagine how both these mountains were connected with each other. They must have looked very different back in the days, back during the colonial period.
After King Dongjeon was exiled to Yongwo in 1457 and the young couple said their final goodbyes, Queen Jongseon is said to have remained near Cheongyongsa Temple, just down the hill from here. According to local tradition, she stayed at a Buddhist nunnery called Cheongop-won. From there, she would climb this mountain and gaze east toward Yongwo, where her husband had been sent. That is how the peak became known as Mang Bong, the east-gazing peak. More than 2 centuries after Jongseon's death, King Yongjo heard her story. In 1771, he personally wrote the words Cheongop-won Gugi, meaning former site of Cheongop-won, and ordered them carved onto a stele. It should still be inside this small pavilion beside the temple. Yongjo also wrote the 3 characters Mang Bong and had them carved into the rock face opposite the stele. But during the Japanese colonial period, parts of this mountain were cut away by the quarry, and the royal inscription disappeared along with them.
Time to leave the mountain behind and go into Bomun-dong. And I have something really cool to show you. It's gonna be our first next thing. Welcome to Bomun-dong, guys. Everything you see over here. Look up some old photos, you'll be surprised. You won't recognize it anymore. Not at all, not at all. In 1936, during the Japanese colonial era, they did massive construction projects here to turn everything you see here into urban hanok. And those hanok, well, many of them have disappeared. People go to Bukchon, people go to Sochon to see hanok, right? But did you know that you can still go to Bomun? So let me show you a nice pocket, urban hanok dating back to 1936. And there are surprisingly a lot of them left here. You wouldn't say so by looking at this. And it starts right over here. Bomun Hanok Mall.
These hanok were built in 1936 to accommodate Seoul's rapidly growing population. While most of them are from 1936, some are built later. Here in Bomun-dong, a small pocket remains. The question is, for how much longer? Similar pockets can also be found in Aramdong and Dongsamundong. Beyond these clusters, there are also lone survivors, hanok you suddenly stumble upon while walking or cycling. They feel like a breath of fresh air among the villas and newly built high-rises. One of the reasons I still like strolling around my own neighborhood.
Look at this. This is so beautiful. And if you see them from above, all the rooftops and the tiles, they look the same as if they were all built similar styles. Well, it's partly true, but if you look and if you observe them from up close, you can notice different details, like here, those little floor tiles, different door texture, sometimes different brick style or tiles on the wall. So they all have their own unique personality. That's one of the reasons it's never ever boring. to see another hanok. And this one has an e-ball, a barber shop inside. How freaking cool. If I had hair, I would definitely explore every single e-ball in Seoul, especially the older ones that look a little more like this. But then you have them also scattered around the neighborhood in Bomun. Just randomly, you'll see suddenly a very beautiful hanok. Let me show you a few of them and then move on to Seongbuk-gu. And also, look at this, look at this. Look how wet I am. Fuck, man. Some are so cute, like this one. There are many like these. Many, many. Unfortunately, this is the future of many of these hanok. It's been here for some time already though, and we have a winner. Olive green tiles, a nice color of wood, well renovated rooftop, many plants in front, different tiles on the ground, a cleaned up sidewalk in front. This wins the cutest and my favorite hanok for today. The streams in Seoul, like this one here, Seongbuk-gu, like one of my favorite places to be because I can run, jog, cycle, walk, and I enjoy some quietness amid all these high rises and the city urban noise. It's lovely. The future of Bomun-dong looks a little bit more like this. They're building the iPark apartments, and what I hope for once, that unlike the apartment buildings in front of my home, the Jai aparte, they don't build an entire wall or fence around it and make it accessible to anyone who lives in the area. In that case, it won't be too bad, and it feels quite spacious. It's right next to Seongbuk-gu, and this is where I could see from old photos where the Bomun-sijang used to be. Now the market is obviously gone, and a few shops here remain that I guess were part of that market, and a big sign used to be there saying Bomun-sijang, also gone. Yeah, if you're a Bomun citizen, do you remember the market? How was it? How was it when the market was still here? And another thing I noticed is that whenever they build new apartments like this, all of a sudden the entire infrastructure around these apartment buildings and even further into the older neighborhood, they're suddenly being changed, improved.
So let's move on to Bomun-sa Temple.
Bomun-dong is named after Bomun-sa, a Buddhist temple in the neighborhood. I've been only once, and ever since they renovated the whole place, and it looks completely different. Not sure what to think about it though. A temple that was established a long time ago, in the 12th century, I believe. Let me start by saying that, wow, Bomun-sa, what a nice surprise in my back garden. Why did I never check you out? The first time I came here, which was also the last time, I checked only the building in front. I didn't know there was a whole temple site behind. And then they started the reconstructions. That always kept me away. Like, okay, you built this new thing here. It doesn't look so attractive anymore. There are enough other temples to Bowandong in Seoul, in Greater Seoul. But now I'm here. I kind of regret that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and there's a little pathway that leads you up on top of the hill behind all these old buildings. It offers a great view over Bomun-dong, one that I've never seen before. It's a temple where the monks pray for royal family members and the protection of the city. And I read somewhere that they also pray for the soul of the queen who climbed the mountain to look in the direction of her husband. Look at these stone mosaics here. Bomun-won. That is so cool. You have to help me understand why this temple, Bomun-sa, built this thing here. They even have a swimming pool on the roof, even though they had so much opportunity to build a nice garden on top of this building. And that's a pity because the buildings behind this are so beautiful. It's a gorgeous temple. Okay, right behind the Bomun-sa temple, there's a hidden path that leads to Samseong-dong, our next neighborhood. Goodbye Bomun-dong and hello Samseong-dong. If you stand in front of Bomun-sa, take the road to the left, you will find this one. And it brings us to a few very interesting places in Samseong-dong that I got to know through Mike from the Mike from Korea YouTube channel. All right guys, I made it. I'm at the very top of Samseong-dong and I'm looking for a little thatched house. Oh, I see it. It's right over there. First, the turtle rock, guys. There's a turtle rock here. The turtle house, his head and his right foot. Now the legend goes that when the king died in Yongwol, the consort queen, she dreamed that the king ascended to heaven on the back of her turtle. And that's this turtle. It's a cool legend, huh? And the turtle is right behind a replica of a Joseon thatched house. I invited Mike over. This is close to Mike's neighborhood because you live in Samseong-dong these days. That's right next door of Bomun-dong, where I live. So we're neighbors.
Even though I think we saw each other more before I moved over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this building is called Bowandong, which means rain shelter. And it dates back to at least the early Joseon dynasty. The original owner was this guy named Yu Guan. He was a scholar in the late Goryeo and early Joseon dynasty, so he was right there at the beginning.
Way back.
Yeah, he was right there at the beginning of Joseon. He earned a reputation as being really trustworthy and honorable and frugal. So as part of his frugality, he didn't spend the money to repair his roof on his cottage. So when it rained, it would leak. I've seen multiple versions of the story, but my favorite one is that one day somebody was passing by and they saw him sitting in the cottage with a parasol above his head on a rainy day. It's a rainy day. This guy engaged a conversation with him, and ultimately he said he wasn't worried about his own situation or his own roof. He was worried about the people with leaky roofs who couldn't afford a parasol.
I see, okay.
This cottage passes down through his daughter's line. It eventually reaches the father of Isu Guang. Isu Guang was a mid-Joseon dynasty scholar. His pen name was Jibong. He created the first, what's considered Korea's first encyclopedia. And it said he wrote the encyclopedia, he compiled the encyclopedia here.
Okay.
In this building, and that's the significance of this building. But he also gave it its name. It was originally located over there. That's the Sangyong Changshin Apartments, the second complex.
This building over here.
The cottage was originally located somewhere over there, and it was torn down when they built the apartments in 1993.
So this is a replica.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of obvious.
Yeah, this was rebuilt in 2003.
But there's something here in the garden.
So this is a well. Below the well is a spring. There is some hanja carved into the rock behind that ondol chimney. Now that says Jaji Dongchan. Jaji comes from Jajicho, which is a plant that we call purple gromwell. The root makes purple dye. There's this legend about Queen Jongsun.
That's the story we talked about earlier, guys, on top of the mountain here.
In her post-royal days, when she was demoted to commoner, she had to make a living, and it said that she made a living by coming here. She would bring cloth to this well and wash the cloth in the spring, and it would magically turn a purple color. So Jaji Dongchun means purple Gromwell Valley Springs. That's one translation of it.
Impressed by all the connections to Queen Jongsun, we walk from Bowandong past the rear entrance of Hansong University to a rare surviving Joseon-era structure.
Yeah, we're walking to another Joseon structure that I also got to know about through Mike. Do you know the name, or was it Samgun something, right?
Samgunbu Chongmudang. Samgunbu means Three Armies Command, and the Chongmudang was their main hall. The only thing we have left of it, there are two buildings, and one of them is right here.
It's Samseong-dong of all places.
It's so cool to find this building here. It was one of the three offices of the Three Armies Command during the Joseon dynasty. I've also just realized that in almost every neighborhood I come across a Joseon-era building that was relocated in its entirety, as if someone literally picked it up and put it somewhere else. Because of their wooden construction, these buildings can be taken apart and reassembled relatively easily.
Chongmudang, the main hall, this is it. It was relocated here in the 1930s.
I'm still impressed, like it's the second time it's here now.
Yeah.
But what a building, eh?
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome.
Because now it feels out of place because we're in the middle of a children's playground. It's right next to a hilltop neighborhood, next to the city wall.
Right, and there's a daycare.
And there's a daycare on the other side.
with another playground.
And this is Hansong there, right?
Yeah,
Hansong-dong here. And then you have this massive former military structure.
Their ROTC is right here, I think, near here, one of the buildings here. So there's some connection to the military at least.
Yeah, you're right. Up to the old city wall, and there's a hilltop neighborhood called Changsu Mall. And Changsu means, do you know what it means?
Longevity.
Yes, right.
But one thing to note, you see these rooftops here.
Yes.
They look different, don't they?
They look new.
Yes.
They pumped some restoration money into the neighborhood.
They did. There was a redevelopment project here. This was part of a redevelopment zone. There were problems with it, mostly because of its proximity to the city wall. The regulations around that really limited its profitability. It ended up becoming a restoration project, a neighborhood revitalization project.
All right.
Oh, and you come through here at night, this has such a cool vibe.
I like this house, it's nice. And here, the Changsu Mall Soshik news.
Nothing going on, I guess.
Nothing going on. Changsu Mall sign?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here you officially enter Changsu Mall.
Changu Village was one of those typical hillside neighborhoods that sprang up organically after the Korean War. What we call a moon village. People digging into the ground to build their homes sometimes uncovered human remains, as the area had previously been used as a cemetery. So the story goes. Even after receiving subsidies to repair their roofs, some residents couldn't afford to do the repairs. The neighborhood was designated as Seoul Future Heritage, but its own future remains unclear. Nearby is Seongbuk-gu, a Buddhist temple that can easily be overseen, as it hides almost invisibly among the surrounding residential buildings.
Well, it was founded in 1958. It was founded by a nun, and the current abbot is a Buddhist nun. So
She's a YouTuber, I believe.
yes, and that's an interesting thing. The founder, one of the goals was to promote a form of Buddhism that could be shared and experienced by everyone. One of the means of promoting it was modern media, and this is in 1958. This thing,
Modern art.
yeah, this is called the Miretap, and it has dozens of these miniature Buddhas in it, and it
Nice.
lights up at night. When there was no construction going on, when the machines are quiet.
Oh, 안녕하세요. 네, 감사합니다.
감사합니다. 감사합니다. So when the machines are quiet, this is another good place to come and sit down with a book. I mean, it's like a little park here. You look at this does not look like a temple.
No, not at all.
It looks like a park with some Buddhist buildings in it, right?
Right. He looked at us. So Mike and I, we made it down to, well, we're at Seongbuk-gu, Seongbuk Stream again. It's just extremely hot, Mike. I'm about to die. Here on my left, you have another pocket of hanok buildings.
And this, for the record, is where the stream comes out from underground.
Into the hanokmaal. And I must say, this one looks a bit better than the one we have in Bomun-dong.
The hanok here are pretty and quiet. Like those in Bomun, they share the same story and there are still quite a lot of them, but probably not for long. Redevelopment plans are already in the works and the future may look more like this. So come soon if you want to see this little hanok pocket for yourself. I've lived in Bomun-dong for only 2 years, but making this video made me realize how little I knew about the streets I pass every week. From Dongnyewa Flea Market, there's a beautiful walk over Mang Bong, following a royal love story, through pockets of urban hanok, reconstructed and relocated Joseon buildings, hidden Buddhist temples, and finally down to Seongbuk-gu. But what struck me most was how much has already vanished or moved. The royal rock inscription disappeared, many of these hanok may soon follow, Bowandong survives as a replica at a different location, Cheongmu-dong was relocated here, and Bomun Market is now gone. In these neighborhoods, old Seoul reappears and disappears. And that's how they will go on the map. After walking all day in this heat, Mike took me to Nata de Nada, a Portuguese pastel de nata shop. Honestly, they serve some of the best pastel de nata I've ever had. I'll probably be back there by the time this video is uploaded. They were that good.
Really good.
Make sure to check out Mike's channel and keep an eye out for his own video about this area. I will see you in the next neighborhood. Houdoe.
And thanks, Mike, for coming out.
Cheers.
You saved my day.
You gave me something to do.
Yeah.
Besides sit and edit my videos.
You could practice for your own video.
Oh, absolutely.
I will see you in the next neighborhood. Houdoe.
Take care.